Think Tech Radio, the Think Tech Radio series broadcasting on KGU 760 AM here in the Think Tech studios in Pioneer Plaza, Suite 30. And today we're doing Energy Wednesday, Hawaii, the state of clean energy. And we're talking about the forum, the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum takes on energy metrics, okay, with Carl Friedman and John Taffel.
That's right.
Thank you for coming down. Say hi, Carl.
Hello there.
Did a good job.
Thank you.
And John?
Hello.
Okay, but we have a special guest from the Negawatt Moment from Hawaii Energy, which we'd like to talk with for a few minutes about the latest program, the latest benefit, the latest special project from Hawaii Energy, and that's Keith Block from the Negawatt Moment. Keith, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jay, for inviting us down today.
What do you got?
Well, I wanted to talk today about, first I wanted to mention who I am. I'm Keith Block. I'm the program manager for the business programs designed for commercial and industrial customers. We are a ratepayer-funded conservation and energy efficiency program for the counties of Hawaii, Honolulu, and Maui counties. I help businesses save energy, and we do that with a bunch of financial incentives.
Okay, well, putting that all aside, which we hear about that every week.
Yeah.
Now, what's special this week? What is Hawaii Energy doing for us now?
Today, I mean, most of the time when we come down to talk to you, we've got very specific measures that we talk about and hopefully let our customers know, give them ideas on things that they can think of. But today I wanted to let you know about a program that is really designed for, it's kind of like our catch-all program, and it's called our Customized Incentive Program. And a lot of times when we're working with commercial and industrial customers, they have a greater level of expertise in their processes and in their business than even we do. So in that case, we have this customized incentive program. Basically, our engineers work with the facility engineers, work with the vendors and the manufacturers of the equipment. And essentially what we do is we figure out what that the energy savings is going to be, and then what the value of that energy savings is, and then we base a rebate based on that.
Okay, so give me an example how I could come down and apply and get a benefit.
We've worked with a lot of different customers. We had a printing press, very large printing press that was replaced with a very sophisticated printing press from Germany, and obviously used less energy and did a lot more productivity. So again, our engineers worked with their engineers to figure out the energy savings, and we based the incentive on that. We've also worked with laundries and improved their processes. There's a lot of different projects that we've worked on, and again, like gave incentives based on the value of the energy savings.
Okay, so how do you determine, what's the formula? How much do I get out of this?
15 cents per kilowatt hour for the first year of savings, and $125 per kW instantaneous demand reduced during our peak period, which is 5 to 9 p.m.
You know, after a while, Carl and John are going to be asking you questions too, so.
Okay.
I'm just the first one.
Yeah.
I know they have questions, I can tell. They're people who always have questions. So I bring my $100,000, make it $500,000 German press into town. What kind of incentive do I get from Hawaii Energy?
You know, it'll vary based on the energy savings, but generally it comes out to about 25% of the project cost. So something that's $1 million could end up getting a $250,000 rebate. But again, it varies by project.
But that would be a rough figure, a rough number. So you guys are going to actually write me a check for $250,000? If
you're putting in a project that large, yeah. Could be, but there's some restrictions that I need to let you know about. For one, all of these projects
Let's hear it.
Yeah, here's the fine print here, but all these projects need to be pre-approved. And that just allows us to get in and work with their engineers and make sure it's a good investment. So it can't have too short of a payback. You know, a project that has less than a year payback shouldn't require incentives from our ratepayer-funded projects to get them to pursue that. Also, obviously, very long paybacks. Sometimes if the payback is way too long, it's not a good investment for the customer, or would it be for us as well. So there are some restrictions, but really this program was designed to catch all of those different technologies that we don't have prescriptive rebates for.
Oh, well, that's pretty good though. So how do I find out about the restrictions? Are they on your website?
Yes, they are, and you can go to our website at hawaiienergy.com.
What was that again?
hawaiienergy.com.
That's what I thought you said.
All one word, hawaiienergy.com. And there's a business tab there where you can go in and you can find all of our prescriptive rebates, all our applications, customized rebate applications.
So you've been doing on a regular basis?
This is a program we've had since the very beginning, and really, like I said, it was put together to catch everything that that we didn't have prescriptive rebates.
Are you handling the program? If I call up with my German press and I want help on that, you'll be the guy that answers the phone?
Probably won't be me that answers the phone, but I'll certainly be involved in it.
Okay, all right. You're the business guy. That's because you're experienced in energy, eh?
Yeah, and I've been in the energy field for quite a number of years. Worked for Hawaiian Electric back in a number of years ago. Was out recently at Pearl Harbor doing energy projects out there. So it's just nice to get back to a good bunch of people down at Hawaii Energy.
Well, you're in the right place for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let me turn you over to the cross-examination now, Carl.
Well, what about Maui? Can you do this on Maui?
Yeah, we can do this. These programs are available Maui County, so Lanai, Molokai, Maui. Also available at Big Island, and the only place obviously we don't do is Kauai Electric because they're a co-op.
And this is for business,
Yeah,
this particular program.
Yeah, this program is specifically for commercial industrial business programs.
So what if you're just a residential customer?
We have stuff for residential customers, but that's a lot more prescriptive. It's solar water heating, it's those types of things, Energy Star appliances. So we have rebates for residential customers, but usually residential customers aren't the ones that have the engineers and the ideas on these big projects.
So what does prescriptive mean?
Prescriptive is, there's a technology like a T8 lamp, and we've just got a certain dollar figure for every T8 lamp you put in, or fluorescent lamp or compact fluorescent. There's a very specific dollar figure that you get for every compact fluorescent you install.
So this customized thing, it's like for the weird stuff.
It's for the weird stuff.
Yeah, okay.
It can be the more fun stuff, actually. I like to think.
A little redirect on Carl's Cross. You said that you didn't do anything in Kauai. Who does?
Kauai is a different utility company.
Yes, yes.
They're a co-op, and so they're not a for-profit utility, so they're doing their own stuff. So they have programs as well. They're similar in a lot of ways, but they're administered by the co-op over there and not by the public benefits fees.
So you just don't get involved in Kauai deals? You don't provide incentives on Kauai?
No, we let them take care of that themselves.
Okay, well, we'll have to ask them what they do exactly and see if they match up to what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, John, your turn. I warn you, John is an analyst. He has very incisive questions.
Yeah, I'm curious a little bit about the time process of this program. How long does it take to go from a call into you folks and then review of the process and receiving the rebate?
Obviously, with the prescriptive program, it's a lot quicker because it's just a straightforward application. You tell us what you did, give us receipts, that kind of stuff, so we can document the transaction, and it's quite a bit quicker. So that's maybe 6 to 8 weeks between installing the equipment and getting a check from us. This project that I was talking about, this customized rebate program, it can be anything, and usually, like I said, it takes pre-approval. Excuse me. So we start working with the customers even before they've, in fact, many times even before they've designed the thing. And we work with them all the way through installation, and then afterwards we do some verification monitoring. And then after that we base the incentive check on the energy savings. So it can be a lot more involved process, so it's really hard to give a time figure on that one.
Okay. Well, what else you want to leave the people with? Give us your closing advice and suggestions. They're out there. You can actually talk to them.
Okay.
What do you want them to do?
Well, I guess the first thing I would say is check out our hawaiienergy.com website. We have all the information on all of our programs and all the incentives that we have, and that's a great place to start. And if you can also on that web page find our phone numbers, and you can give us a call, and we can start helping you immediately.
Okay, well, thank you, Keith. Thanks for coming down. I hope we see you again on one of our Wednesday Energy Specials, Hawaii, the state of clean energy. And you can talk more about this program, or any other program you're doing to benefit of energy efficiency in Hawaii.
Thank you, Jay. Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you, Keith. We're going to take a short break now for these messages. We'll be right back. Stay there for Think Tech Hawaii and Energy Wednesday. Hawaii, the state of clean energy. We'll be right back. Okay, now we're going to switch. Sharon, you want to come in or what?
Well, let's see. Who's going to do this thing?
Nobody.
Well, I can do it.
Just leave it on the.
Huh?
You want to?
Just do it on the whole screen thing?
You want to talk? You want to stay around then? We got a seat for you.
No, that's all right.
Okay.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay. I'll come there.
Okay, yeah,
That's
why
why I
don't you
kept
come in?
looking at you.
Just leave it on number
I know
one,
you
right?
know all these
Okay.
numbers by heart, right? I mean, you were involved with getting them set up, right?
What is percent?
Yeah, thanks.
I like the cross-examination. Huh? Nice to meet
Thank you
you.
very much. Appreciate it.
Nice to meet you.
guys. Good to see you again, Carl.
Thank you.
Bye, Shan. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, why don't you strap in? And we'll make believe we're having a radio break now. I'm watching the clock.
So the commercial comes in later.
Yeah, they'll put the commercials in.
Okay.
See, we have like maybe one more minute, then we'll go back. This way I can keep the time.
What that? that?
Yeah, I'm getting confused because we didn't start on the hour. So this is a part where they would put in commercials.
Okay.
Okay.
We don't get to do the commercials?
No, would you like to do a commercial?
Yeah.
This is your opportunity because they'd be cut right out.
And go.
But you can practice.
I think we should do like, the fourth metric is brought to you by.
Okay, let's start up again. We'll spend 15 minutes in the second segment of the show. We're back. We're live. We're Think Tech. It's here on Energy Wednesday, and guess what? Sharon Moriwaki has joined us from the control room, where she was helping a minute ago. Sharon is the co-host in this show and the co-chair of the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum. And I might add that Carl is a member of the Energy Policy Forum since 1937, when, am I right? It was close to that.
Close.
It was closer to that day than it is to this day, okay? And we have John Taffel. John is a energy and sustainable analysis engineer person, something like that,
Yeah.
with a company called KEMA, DNV KEMA.
DNV Kima.
Okay, energy and sustainability. And John is actually helping Carl in developing the Energy Metrics program. So the Energy Metrics program is a very important program undertaken by the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum a couple of years ago, and Carl's been working on it all that time. I think the first thing we should do is we should say to the people what the program is and how it got started and what its original purposes were. And then we can dig in and drill down. Carl?
Well, one of the goals of the forum has always been to figure out some way to measure how much progress we're making and what type of a job we're doing as a state towards the forum's goals, towards the clean energy goals the state has. And we have a lot of policy, a lot of decisions, a lot of money, a lot of investment being made in our energy future. Is it doing us good? Is it doing us what we want to do? So the effort to develop metrics started with the forum itself deciding how to frame the project. We put the project in 3 phases, although what's in each of these 3 phases keeps changing. Sometimes I look at phase 2 and it's got the first 3 phases in it. But in general, the original idea was we would first have a stakeholder group. We'd get people from all different professions, all different groups together, different interests, and just ask the question, how are we going to measure progress? What's good? I mean, what types of things would be success? And what do we want to measure to do that? And so there was a stakeholder group that went on for better part of a year with various meetings and work between.
This is the public.
Well, it included members of different government agencies, the university, Public Utilities Commission, legislators, environmental groups.
How many members? You might want to say how many members. It was broad. It was a number.
Yeah, well,
right?
the forum has like, what, 50 members, something on that order. I think the stakeholder group was kind of a different cross-section. I probably had about 20 different constituencies, you know.
Very
there.
broad.
So you would meet in a room and you would say, here's what we're thinking about. Have you got any suggestions, additions, deletions?
I'd
what
say,
have you?
okay, how do we measure progress? And somebody would say, well, how much oil are we using? And somebody would say, well, you know, but we're growing, you know. Oh, so maybe it should be the amount of oil per person. And so I say, oh, but what about the economy is growing? Maybe it should be the amount of oil per dollar in the economy and things like that. But we basically came up with about 4 general categories of things to measure. So one was we wanted some overall number that you could kind of grasp that would be the basic report card grade.
Index, the index.
That's right.
The Hawaii Clean Energy Index.
And then we wanted one set of metrics about, are we making progress towards all the things we want to do clean energy for? Are we reducing the amount of carbon in the atmosphere? Are we reducing the number of dollars that are leaving? Are we developing green jobs? And there's kind of a list of things that if you were to ask a policymaker, why are we doing this clean energy? They give you all these lists of things. Well, we want to measure that. Are we really doing that? You know? And so another thing to measure is, are we making progress towards the state's goals? The state has actually established particular goals like renewable portfolio standards, energy efficiency portfolio standards. There are HCEI clean energy standards. There are reducing greenhouse gas emissions till 1990. So these are actually measures of progress towards, those are the easy ones because they already are defined in some way. And it's a matter of just logging how far we're going. Although John and I figured out that none of these things end up being that simple when you actually try to add them up.
Well, a couple of thoughts come to mind. Number one is, let me ask you one more question before I get into this. How many actual indices are there in your final design?
What did we come up? About 16.
Oh, that's all.
Well, but some of them kind of have different variants, you know. And then when we got into collecting the data set, we realized that, well, now that we've got all these data together, there are a number of different things we can figure out. But,
other things.
Yeah. So in other words, if you look at the amount of fossil fuel that you're using, and you've also got the amount of life cycle carbon that's associated with that, you can look at it different ways. You can look at it in absolute terms, per person, per dollar, and of course it looks different when you look at it different ways.
Well, I think what's very interesting is that this can be very sophisticated. And at the time, you know, you made your wish list, and other people told you what was on their wish list. I mean, were you thinking of the availability of that data? Because some of the data could be hard to get, right, Carl?
Right.
I mean, are you going to be able to get it all? Did you evaluate the categories on that basis?
Well, that was John's job. That's why we hired him
Yeah.
to come in and do all
John.
that. Because see, it was several parts. I mean, I was telling you about the fun part, which was what I did. It was a stakeholder group. You just talk to people, what's important to do, but then the next step was, okay, once you figure out what you want to measure, the question is, oh, okay, now how are we going to do that? And there was an intermediary step, UHERO, which is the University of Hawaii Energy Research Organization. Was retained by, was it
Economic research.
Okay, yes.
Oh, UHERO.
You hear
Yeah,
it.
UHERO.
Okay.
Yeah, I said their name.
If it was Energy Research Corporation,
Then we would have no
organization,
problem.
it would be UHERO.
Yes,
The same.
right. But basically, they did a great body of work of putting together some equations and investigating where some of this data might come from. But then the really grueling part we gave to John's group here, which is to actually go out and get all this data and populate these big spreadsheets and turn them into a model, basically, that could be updated as you go on. And so all these data are broken down by, well, first from like 1960-ish up to the present, and then by different sectors and by different end uses.
Oh.
And
I'm feeling a little tipsy with all of the work involved in this. But let me ask you one other thing: is while you were working on this, things were happening. This is such a dynamic area. There's changes all the time.
and it took us so long. A lot of things
Say?
happened.
Yeah, sure, yeah. And so, I remember when we started, or when you started the project, and I remember I was at one of those stakeholder meetings, which was really interesting because people were coming from all directions,
right,
all
very
kinds
diverse.
of questions, some of which I remember today, but I'm not going to mention here on the air, because I thought they were all kinds of questions. But isn't it that in that period of time, the industry has changed, the state of clean energy, excuse the expression, has changed, and thus haven't the metrics changed also? Have you been modifying the metrics to meet changing times? Or did you find metrics that were essentially, that wrapped around all these changes?
Well, I think the metrics were pretty good set of indicators. And to the extent that things were changing, they would show up in the metrics. I think that's the way to put it.
So the metrics measure the change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like if you wanted to know how comfortable, you want to measure your comforts, you decide the metrics would be, the temperature and the humidity and the amount of light in the room, And so that might change all the time, and then, it might get warmer, might get to be summertime, and you still have the same measurements, the same metrics, but the values are going to change and cover the whole gamut. So
This is so exciting, isn't it? I mean, what makes you
I
excited
wonder
about
sometimes whether this is exciting or not. It's like, this is data we're talking about. It's these numbers that nobody ever
You don't
thinks
think
about.
data is exciting, Carl?
Well, I actually do myself. I don't consider myself a normal person for it.
No, I don't either. What about you, Sharon? Do you consider Carl a normal person?
Well, sometimes.
Let the record reflect that Carl's cheeks are slightly red at this point.
But
Okay, well,
I thought we could get to John's
We're going to do
discussion.
that
Yeah.
right
Let's-
after,
break.
immediately after this break. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. This is Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy. It's Energy Wednesday with the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum, supported by HECO, DBED, and Hawaii Energy, which you
Yes.
can tell from these commercials. We'll be right back. Stay there. I hope that was about 14 minutes.
It's hard when you're pre-recording and you're a little bit off of your time.
They figure it out.
Oh, well, okay.
We just have to give them enough material so they can keep going. Okay, so the next caller,
Perfect.
we're going to talk to you. Okay?
Perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
And
That's
we're
great.
going to find out exactly what you've been doing.
Okay.
The
And there will
grueling
be
work.
cross-examination.
All right.
Yeah, because Kima's from San Francisco. Oh, they have a
Oakland.
big
Yeah.
organization.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
really nice that we were able to get them. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's been a pleasure.
All right, ready to go back? Okay. All right. We're back. We're live. This is Think Tech. This is Hawaii Energy. This is Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy. It's Energy Wednesday. And we're here with Carl Friedman and John Taffel and my co-host, Sharon Moriwaki, talking about the forum, that's the Energy Policy Forum, takes on energy metrics, an important project of the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum. And now we're directing our questions at John Taffel, who is an analytical person at least.
Yeah. that's
What's your
right. That's
proper
right.
title, John?
Senior energy analyst. It's the proper
How did you get
nomenclature.
to that level in life?
It's been a good campaign towards collecting data, reviewing it, analyzing it, and presenting it for folks like these guys.
Do you find it as exciting as Carl does?
Carl, 1 to 10. What do you find?
I get excited. Yeah.
Yeah, I
You
get
didn't answer
excited
the
too.
question. Is it 10 or 8?
these metrics, you know.
Well, I tell you why I get excited, and you guys can agree or disagree. I mean, you know, it's so hard to do an initiative of, you know, fresh material, fresh development, and we don't know where we are on the track. Sometimes we don't know, you know, actually where we're going, but we need to have some sense of our progress, and these metrics can give us that. And if we have good metrics, then it will encourage us to go all the faster. We'll be encouraged by what we find we've done.
not
If,
done.
if on the other hand we find that the metrics aren't so good, that will also likewise encourage us to go faster. So either way, it's like going on a diet. You need to weigh yourself every
That's
morning. You don't have to
right.
worry about this, but others at this
right.
table may have to worry about it. Okay, so John, what did you do in school to get to be an energy analyst like that?
Oh, you want to go there? Okay.
Do we have enough time?
You want
Did
to
you bring
hear
your
what he's
CV
doing.
along?
You have to hear what he's doing too. So just a snippet.
A snippet here. I did some very intensive work in the marine biology field, collecting data in Belize on the state, not of energy, but the state of the coral reefs and potential impacts of policies that were put in place to protect certain areas and compare those to the unprotected areas. And so put some of that information together into some different analyses, and then I turned to the energy direction.
When was that?
I did the Belize work in 2007 and switched to energy in 2008.
Good move.
Yeah, good move.
What's your degree in?
Marine biology is the degree.
Okay.
Yeah,
But you learned a lot about collecting data and analyzing data. in that.
that's right. Yeah, yep.
Okay, so then somewhere along the line, you and Carl Friedman connected, and I bet you Sharon Moriwaki was involved in that process too. Okay.
Yeah, the organization, DMV Kema, who I work for, was involved in getting together with these guys. And it was a fantastic experience, and I've been very impressed with the forum's ability to put together such a comprehensive set of metrics to, you know, review the information you've been talking about. It's you know, you guys said you had the fun part, but I think, you know, realizing the near impossible of collecting all this data was pretty fun.
Well, question, John. Have you seen another metrics project on energy, anything like this one?
No, this is pretty astounding to me. It has a clear effort from start to finish in a 47-page document or so of, you know, what in the energy world is important to view, progress towards, impacts from, and it's been a great experience to work with Carl and Sharon to start with formulas in a document and come together with a spreadsheet model that displays these different metrics in a pretty granular way, but also a interactive way that you can go between different metrics, go between the different sectors in Hawaii, the different fuels used, and understand how they're changing throughout time.
Well, let me see if I can clarify for my own sake, as a sort of fair witness on this, as a sort of a proxy for people who don't know what you're doing. You're not actually writing the website on this, are you?
That's right. No, I'm not.
You're doing the analysis. But
I'm right, collecting data and putting it through some calculations that were defined by the forum to present sort of a dashboard, table of data that could be broken down and listed out in a very disaggregated way to then be put forward through another tool if it were available that could then display this information.
So-
updated.
And
links to
updated.
update
That's
it.
yeah.
Exactly.
So how do you get data? This is sophisticated data. I mean, I'm sure some of them are easier than others, but others are harder than some. I get that right?
That's right.
So what do you do? Make a call, say, hi, My name is John Taffel, and I need some data. Would you mind reading some numbers to me over the phone? Is that the way it works?
Some calls are involved. Some clout behind the Energy Policy Forum throughout Hawaii has been very helpful.
Yeah.
The forum actually listed out a few guiding sources that they recommended we go to, and that was a great effort on their part, which really led down some very successful data mining pathways. And that would lead to a document that would have some sources listed at the end. We'd go track down those sources, contact authors of papers that had further information to share. So it was really an all-out effort, source after source.
But whatever you get, you have to keep on getting. In other words, when you start this analysis, when you start this presentation on day one, you have to be able to find the changes in the same categories of information on day 2 and 3 and 4.
Right, absolutely.
To set up channels of information that are always coming at you. How do you do that?
Right. Well, one key thing is to make sure that the data that you're bringing in is going to be, or is planning on, an annual update, or as close to annual as possible, so that as we were saying, that the model itself can be updated and track the progress over time. So that's a real key question when you're asking for the availability of different sets of data. That is it going to be available? And then the model is built so that you can paste in this information into one location, and that will feed into calculations in other sections that automatically track the progress.
Yeah, forgive me, but I'm interested in that a lot.
Yeah.
So somebody sends you, for example, a spreadsheet.
Right.
And they say, John, thank you. We'd like to cooperate with you. We think your project is very important. So we're sending you this really big spreadsheet. Now you have to figure out how to get the data from the spreadsheet into, I guess, your database, because you create a database to make your analysis, right? To apply your algorithms and formulae and so forth. And
Right.
so somebody is either going to have to cut and paste that or type it in with his little fingers.
That's right. Yeah, it's designed to be a cut and paste exercise, so that you have one tab of information that was copy and pasted from a source, and the expectation is that source will continue to be available and presented in the same way the next year. And when you paste it the next year, there's already a column for that year of data that's being fed into the rest of the model. And so that is designed to be a copy and paste, and there's always the possibility that these data sets change, and a person is therefore encouraged to be the manipulator of the updating process, but not a robot.
Well, it occurs to me anyway that you need continuity.
Right.
You need continuity of the sources of data, you need continuity of the person who goes out and taps those sources, whatever interval is involved. And if the source of the data gets lost, your numbers are in jeopardy. If the person who's getting it, gets lost, then you're in jeopardy. And I suppose it sounds like to me, John, that this has got to be written down in some great big manual about exactly where everything is located and how you get it next year or whenever is the next time, right?
Yes, absolutely, Jay. All part of the package. All part of the package. So that's what we're
A deliverable.
a
as it were.
deliverable.
Yeah,
That-
thank you.
indeed.
In the contract.
It's in the contract.
I'm just trying to be helpful here.
We thought about that.
Absolutely, yeah. And so that's part of the end package of information that will be available.
Okay, so now you have the data, you've identified what you need, who you're going to get it from, how you're going to insert it into a database, and you need to analyze it. This is your forte. This is what they pay you the big bucks for. So how do you decide what kind of formula to apply to what kind of data in order to get the right, or at least a meaningful result?
Sure. In this particular case, what we've done is really the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum, and through UHERO, designed the formula that we ended up using to the greatest degree possible. And while trying to get some of the data available, we found that certain things needed to be adjusted slightly. And so that's just a matter of looking at what your end goal is, what you're trying to calculate, what data are available, and then looking at the suggested formula and trying to get to your end result. And it was a good challenge of considering that available data and doing the best we could.
Well, I think you have to, it's like your home office is in Oakland, California.
Right.
So you're here I mean, this isn't your regular home. This is a job.
Right.
But it strikes me that in writing the book, in evaluating, where you're going to get the data, how you're going to use the data, how it might change while you're working on it, you've got to take a look at Hawaii. You've got to see Hawaii as an organism of information. I like that phrase, don't you? It's an organism of information, and you've got to understand it. You're manipulating it every time you create a report on this. So it requires local study, so to speak, don't you think?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
So what have you been doing? I mean, you have meetings with Carl, you have meetings with Sharon, and the ones with Sharon are much more fun. I'm not saying that it's not fun with Carl, but I guess the question is, when you're all ready from those meetings to go and do your thing, what do you do?
Get a cup of coffee.
Good. We start there.
Yeah, and San Francisco, Oakland, the Bay Area has a great taste for a variety of coffees, although this is my first experience with the
What's your
Kona,
favorite kind?
Kona coffee.
This is the time for a commercial, don't you think?
Blue bottle's fantastic. Do you have a favorite Kona blend? I mean, is there a good brand? This is.
I don't drink coffee, John.
It's a fine answer. Got my coffee, and then I bring up the spreadsheet, and I've got my data sources. I make a phone call. I have a piece of graph paper. I jot a lot of ideas down of how I think I'm going to try to get to my final end calculation, and then I just try to fit the puzzle pieces in place.
So you know where you're going. You know the ultimate number you're looking for. You've already sort of decided on that. And you have the data, and you have to sort of squeeze that all into the bottle somehow by way of a formula.
Right.
And you've got to write the formula. Is it an algebraic formula? It must be complicated, huh?
The formulas are a variety. How would you describe any of the?
Well, I think it's more than just gathering the data. John's also put together a model. It's in a spreadsheet format, so it's displaying.
Tell us what a model is, Carl.
Well, I think a model is, in this case, it's a spreadsheet model. So it's a whole series of pages. You know what a spreadsheet looks like? It's like a bunch of cells, go horizontally and vertically. And each of the cells either has a number in it or some formula that goes to some other number. But it's a way to spread out numbers that are all related to each other in some way, in a way that makes sense. And so what John has put together is one of the fancier spreadsheets you might see. This is pretty high-class stuff.
That is impressive.
So he's got some tabs that show the source data. These are the little pages. They're designed in the format that the raw data is. If it comes from the Energy Information Association, they have a format, so it gets plastered in there. And the next page might come from DBED. Next page might come from Hawaii Energy, who Keith worked for. Some might come from the PUC. It has these pages, and then there are links. So from that format, it links onto a calculation page. From the calculation page, it links onto what they call a dashboard. Now, the dashboard is a page where all the formulas are put together. If it needs the number of barrels of oil in it, it has the number of barrels of oil from 1960 all the way out. If it has to be broken down by the commercial, industrial, residential, power sector, air, transportation, marine, whatever, it's broken out into rows.
I get to see this?
Oh yeah, it'll be up. Everybody gets to see this wonderful thing.
That's fantastic.
And then there are columns, and then each of these variables is listed, and the stuff that's calculated from that is listed. And then it all goes to an interactive page in the front, where you get to click on total divided by population, divided by gross state product? Do you want to look at electric ground transportation? Do you want to look at kerosene, residual fuels, electricity? You break it out, and the little graphs will kind of move around and display. And we've used the graphs extensively for checking the data to make sure that it all makes sense. But the next part of the Forums project is actually to take it a step further and go from all this data, this spreadsheet, back into something meaningful. So it's going to go, ultimately the project is to make a full circle. We started with a stakeholder group to tell us what is meaningful. If we're going to measure progress, what is it? These are actual human beings in the room who may not know that the word
I
data
will add
refers
that
to
they're
a
not only
plural.
human beings, they're mammals.
Yes. But they may not, these are people who may not know that the word data actually is the plural form of a word, right, for example. And then we took that, we went through, we've had you here, we had Kima, to do all the hard work to say those concepts, what rigorous details do we have to go through to make sure that those concepts are accurately represented? How do we have to be careful about that to make sure that we're really measuring what that's supposed to measure? And of course, Kima got down there at the bottom of the barrel, scraping up all this information, putting it up in the spreadsheet, getting it all to calculate. And then the next step is to bring it back home. So when we're done, Kima, they turn in their I pounded the table.
Let the record reflect that Carl pounded the table. And I guess with
He
all
wanted to do
respect,
that.
this is a good time to take a break to
Okay.
recover from the pounding on the table.
Yeah.
Sharon, we're going to take a break now. That's
Okay.
Sharon Moriwaki. She's my co-host in this program, Carl Friedman and John Taffel, and we're talking about the metrics program. The forum takes on energy metrics. We'll be right back after this break. Our timing is okay. Okay, so we
I
should.
pounded the table.
You did. You wanted to do it,
Well,
so
we-
subconsciously.
But I didn't even get
You
any
don't mind
pleasure out of
that.
it.
Caning is too good.
It's not like I pounded the table, it's like I inadvertently pounded the table.
We have to get you to sign a book acknowledging. So I'd like to go further with the
the
that
next
thought
step.
right after, and I'd like to
future.
talk about the ultimate look of it, and who's going to do that. And
We don't know. We don't know.
Huh?
We don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
then that's what you'll
People
say.
in the studio audience might come forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you could say this is what we're looking to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go
But not
back right
who.
now.
But,
Okay.
Yeah.
We're back, we're live, we're Think Tech, we're Energy Wednesday, we're Hawaii, the state of clean energy, and the progenitors of that are the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum, DBED, the Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, Hawaii
Energy.
Energy, and of course Hawaiian Electric too. So thank you all for making this show possible. And with us today we have Carl Friedman, who is working on the metrics project. We call the show The Forum Takes on Energy Metrics, and John Taffel, who's working with him. John is with DNV Kima, Energy and Sustainability Energy Data Analysts out of Oakland, California. Thank you, guys. But Carl, I wanted to continue with your thought a moment ago, before the break, about how this all makes a full turn, and it comes back to presenting the stakeholders with what the stakeholders wanted. It's great marketing, actually. Whatever they want, they can have. Except we have to go around the block to get
But
it.
we also wanted policymakers to see that this is meaningful information.
That's
so you
true.
might
We want to
talk
know about
it.
that, too.
Yeah. Well, the original audience, the intended audience, was decision makers. They include the legislators, the utilities, county government, academic community. We're hoping that the information that this provides actually is going to be available to the university and some of the other purveyors of data, and also the general public, because I think that one of the challenges in moving forward with progress towards clean energy goals is making sure that people understand why things are important, can make a direct connection between the money you pay on your utility bill and the types of places it goes, and the types of decisions you make and what type of vehicle you buy, that makes a difference, not just in your own pocketbook, but in how the whole state works, in terms of our environment, in terms of how the whole economy is affected. And I think that there's some hope that this will give good information to the decision makers, to the academic community, to general people, you know, what really progress means and what kind of progress we're making on all these things.
Your heart should beat faster.
Yeah.
You know what they say? They always say this: a great energy state deserves great energy data. Something like that.
That's an old saying.
You've heard that before. John, turning back to you. So you get it all in a spreadsheet. You have all these formulae, and you're coming up with indices and reports, presumably, out of all this data, which you want to present to somebody. And to me, that's a critical moment, because it's meaningless unless the guy who looks at it understands what you have there. Okay, now, are you involved in translating that for him? Do you think of the nomenclature for the labels and tags and presentation devices, presentation structures on the website, or does somebody else? Or do you work in collaboration with somebody who's building the website that's going to present this, did you say dashboard?
That's the next step.
Next
Okay.
step.
The next step for the
Right.
forum, actually.
Right. So I've done a preliminary, what I think, and working with a colleague as well back in Oakland, so that we have a preliminary set of presentation graphics. Nomenclature and terminology was collaborative, largely with Carl and the forum's previous work. And then at this point, I'm turning this in, and the preliminary graphics just give us a sense of what the data look like, and that's, I think we both agree, Carl and I have talked about how it's a necessary step to make sure that what we're providing makes sense before we put it out there for others to look at and review. And at this point, I believe it goes back to the forum, and they will continue down the next step to give a little more refined and comprehensive visual
On the presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carl, you want to talk about the next phase and what we're trying to do?
Well, I think the next phase is to take the information we've developed and the metrics and express them in some way that's meaningful. So that becomes a matter of not just seeing the data. What John's put together, you can see just what the data are. You know how to read a graph, you can see it. But how do you express that in a way that somebody can look at it or hear about it or make sense of it? I mean, and you get pretty creative about it. I mean,
Well,
I had a
suppose-
metric. I had a metric once that I think that had some meaning for, Keith's organization. They're trying to keep people using energy efficiently, and sometimes people get a new refrigerator, and they take the old refrigerator, and they just put it in the garage, and it's still plugged in. So what's the old point of having a nice new refrigerator if you're still running the old one? So what do they use the old one for? There's usually like a case of beer in there and some pop, and
Terrible
that's what-
waste, yeah.
So here's my metric was, how many beers a day does the refrigerator consume? So you can figure it out. You go to Costco or wherever you buy your beer, right? You figure out what the cost of a beer is. You know what the electricity is. It's an old refrigerator. It comes out to a couple, 3 beers a day that the refrigerator is drinking. Right? It's so
That really
has
gets
some
home.
meaning.
Yeah.
That has some meaning to people. People can make a direct connection between cold beer and an inefficient refrigerator.
Yeah.
So that's an idea, I think, about where the metrics could go, and it's a different type of thought than just looking at a graph of some numbers. It's more like, how do people think? What really means something to people that they can relate to, that they can, that relates to what we're doing with our energy.
Well, let's take a real live example, if we could. So now the software is finished, or rather the website is finished, and there's graphics on there. I think graphics would be very important for the guy who doesn't want to go through a list of numbers. He wants to see it in graphic format, of course. And let's say I'm the chair of the Energy Committee and I have a bill. So I would be interested in this thing. I would be interested in whatever it says, however it can be interpreted, and I would want people to come before my committee and explain to me how this data, either supports or opposes a particular measure. So we all have access to that data. It becomes the standard by which the arguments are all made. It's the raw material of policy. This is fabulous.
Yeah.
And you haven't seen this elsewhere, right, John?
No, I've not come across something this comprehensive in
Yeah.
my experience.
So, but can you give me an example, for example, of say Mike Gabbard, the Senator Gabbard, who runs the Senate Energy Committee? What kind of data would he look at in connection with what kind of bill, and how valuable would it be for him?
Well, I think if you were to look at something like the renewable portfolio standards that the state has, there's an example of the legislators setting a goal. And the original goal that was set in the original legislation is 20% by 2020. Now, there's a metric for you, and where did that come from? 20, it's like it was cute, right? 20% by 2020. I don't think most of the legislators or the policymakers really had too much of an idea about, it wasn't based on this real careful analysis of what is practical, how much are we pushing ourselves. It sounded about right, and it was cute enough that it worked. And in the years that ensued, then we had all kinds of policy arguments about, well, does it include energy efficiency? Does it exclude energy efficiency? Or photovoltaics, do they get subtracted from the sales? They had all kinds of issues. And so on one level, resolving some of these data-related issues have to do with actually how you enforce a standard that's set. And I think most of those things have been worked out, although in the area of energy efficiency, there's a place where, unlike the portfolio standard, the legislature said, well, we're going to have an energy efficiency standard, but instead of it being a fraction of two measurable, meterable numbers, which is renewable energy, which is metered, and renewable generation, which is metered, it was energy savings from some 2030 number, right? Well, that's not measurable. How do you...
How'd you do
Neither.
that?
So all of a sudden, the people who have to implement this have to actually implement a standard where things are a little mushier.
But this forces policymakers to be rational and use rational data.
Well, I think
they can't throw it on the
Yeah.
wall anymore.
Well, and then when it comes around again, at some point, somebody's got to figure out whether the 20% number was reasonable,
And change it. Maybe change it.
We need to revisit our policies as we go forward to make sure they're really doing what we need to do. And I think one of the ideas of having good metrics is we'll be able to look back and say, hey, having this policy for the past 10 years, of course we haven't had it, but when we look back, having this policy for the past 10 years, we can see how much we've reduced our carbon footprint. We can see what we've done for our export of dollars for petroleum. And I think that should be of value to the decision makers in the future.
What will also be of value, and I'm sure you've built this in, so you take an annual snapshot, annual report, annual presentation, charts and graphs and numbers on the dashboard with the 16 categories of information on that. But every year, it's different. And you have to compare it with the year before and the year before that, and you have to get a chart on how the numbers you are reporting on, are they themselves changing? So you can see the trends and everything, and I'm sure to a moral certainty, John, that is built into your model,
Oh,
right?
yes, definitely.
Absolutely.
So we
That's the
can
whole
see what
idea.
kind of progress we're making.
No, that was the whole
And we
idea.
can go faster, go slower, what have you. We can change direction, whatever you need to do to respond to those changes.
But looking at these metrics now that they're developed, we haven't had much time really to start analyzing them in a sense, but it's not like the answers just jump right out at you and tell you you're doing a good job or you're not doing a good job. We have things that are pushing us around big time. When oil prices go way up or oil prices go way down, they affect the metrics. They affect, how much money we're spending. And so we're trying to pull a signal out of some noise here. We want to know over the longer term, balanced against what those numbers are. Like one of our metrics measures a difference of how much we're spending versus how much we would have been spending at current oil prices if we would not have made the energy efficiency improvements, if we have not improved the efficiency of our generation system, if we would not have put renewables in the mix. So if you take the old system without the changes and compare that a few years later with what our fuel bill is now with what it would have been if we wouldn't have made the progress. So that's an example of a metric that's trying to pull some signal out of this noise. But the noise is pretty extreme here. It's one of the reasons we're really behind. Our susceptibility to oil prices is so debilitating when we feel it bad.
We'll be able to understand that better. We'll be able to understand the ripple effects of various changes in the data on other elements in the economy. You guys have done a wonderful job, no kidding. This is really the policy, energy policy forum. And I remember it was Darren Kimura of Sopogy, his idea in the first place that we should attack this, and it was a great idea. It had been well executed. It's going to have a profound effect on Hawaii, the state of energy, as no other place, John. And you can take this to other places and share it with them. It's okay.
Appreciate that, Jay. Thank you. Thank you.
Anyway, thank you all. It's been a great discussion. This is a great project, and I hope we can all get together here again the same way, in a few months, or whenever you tell me we're at the next iteration, next plateau, next stepping stone in making this possible. But it is very promising, and it will give us a handle as no other place. And it's fabulous that you're doing this. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank
We're going
you.
to take a break now, and we'll be back next week.
Aloha.
Aloha. Hawaii, the state of clean energy. Energy Wednesday. Thank you, Carl Friedman. Thank you, John Tafel.